Annie Andrews, I'm going to throw you right under the bus straight away.
I wondered why you said it like that.
By saying publicly, none of this would have happened without you. And I mean that from
That's lovely, but not true.
The bottom. So for context, Annie was when I left the Navy, joined a consultancy who then farmed me out. Annie was the first person who sort of gave me a shot in a big corporate environment, which has then led on to other things. But without that, genuinely, and there was me and another guy who sort of had to, I mean, you got us both in the end. But
yes, you caused me a big problem. I had space for one person, and you both turned up and you were both awesome.
I was the cheaper one.
And I had to go and negotiate for another spot, so that wasn't easy.
But genuinely, I'm not overly, openly emotional, but yeah, thank you, just publicly for taking a shot. And
well, I mean, the first shot is one thing, but the one thing I've seen from you since is an enormous amount of hard work and a real vision of where you're going. So I'll accept your thanks for the start, but not accept your thanks for the whole thing.
All right, okay. Anyway, we've done that now.
Yeah.
Calvin, we can move on.
We'll just edit all that out.
So you are the current CEO. Is it Curo? Curo Services.
It's Latin for I curate and I care.
Every day is a school day. We'll dive straight into that. But I've got a bit of a tradition where I'll dive into someone's LinkedIn posts and pull something out that triggers my interest, just to see what the person's mindset or headspace they're in at the time. Mm-hmm. So this should be quite interesting and relevant. So I'm not going to try and pretend I knew. I think this was in the last couple of weeks. So vibe coding, and I'm doing that because that's what it says. Vibe coding has been made word or words of the year. I'm not sure I've ever felt older. In all seriousness, I'm all for making some coding tasks easier and letting more people experiment. My worry is that at some point a business will be built on generated code that no one there actually understands in detail. It's all fine while it works. ... What triggered that? Where was your head at when you press publish on that?
Yes, what specifically triggered that was it being put into the dictionary as a concept, and I'd heard the concept of vibe coding. I'm very conscious of not being a cynical Gen X, I know everything, these kiddies, what do they know? So I always check myself, and just automatically hearing vibe coding, I could have just been being cynical about it.
Yeah.
But a genuine worry I have, you see AI being able to help with code, really good stuff. It can identify cyber errors where, let's face it, even the best coders make mistakes, and quite a lot of the coders aren't the best coders. So that's all great. You can generate code, bringing the bar down on tasks, being able to generate entire websites that look beautiful without the need for a coder slightly hurts me to my core as a developer in the past, but it's great. Genuinely, my worry is that businesses, a bit like in the past, you'd have businesses entirely built on complex spreadsheets, and then the person who knows how those spreadsheets work leaves, and no one knows how anything happens in the business. Yeah. You could have entire businesses built on generated code where the developers think they know what's going on, but actually it's generated code. While it works, it's great. The minute something changes, modern systems are such a stack of cards. You've got the operating system, you've got obviously the hardware as well, but you've got layer upon layer of libraries and frameworks. Something changes in one of those, suddenly your code stops working and you don't know why. You've got to be quite skilled to be able to debug it. And if you've handwritten it, it's hard enough. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but I remember early on when we were in the same place, there was an incident that lasted about a week.
Probably.
Something to do with cache points, and one of the devs had to go up to Scotland to fix it. And it ended up being like a tiny bit of code that was written in like the 90s or something. I don't know why, but I remember that being like quite the first time I'd sort of not read something about a bank on the news and seen the chaos it was causing. And it was like one tiny thing.
So
probably one of many issues, to be fair. But.
So one of my jobs at the bank was to help with incidents and listen to some of the project teams where they're under a lot of pressure, and just sit and listen and try and work out whether there's something that they've missed or an assumption that they've made.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of time where you just go, well, it definitely can't be that. And you think, just tell me why it can't be that. I'm not saying it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's all code that's been handwritten that, isn't necessarily better. Code that's written and generated automatically may well be better. But if you don't, it's hard to understand it just by reading. It's a bit like learning a language, a foreign language. You can read a foreign language. The minute someone asks you to actually speak to them, you panic and run away.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of interaction where you can read a piece of code and go, yep, I absolutely know what that's doing. And it falls over and you think, well, why has it done that? The traditional meme with the developer is, well, it definitely can't do that. It definitely hasn't done. Oh, it has done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the point of view. It worries me. I very much don't want to be the cynical, everything should be handcrafted, but we need to retain enough knowledge of what we have in our businesses so that when things go wrong, or if things go wrong, then we can do something about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. You've obviously got so much experience. Could you tell us, the listener, the watcher, in as much detail as you wish, how you've got to where you are? Not literally today, because I know you got the train. But
the train, yes. Yeah, that's a difficult question. Being a woman in tech, I get asked to talk about my career journey as if it was curated and at all thought through.
Yeah. I specifically missed out the woman in tech thing.
Yes. So, but this does get asked quite often. So that may not be why I'm here. Yeah. But I've reflected on it a number of times because I'd quite like to be able to think of some sensible reason as to how I've got here through some thought. And I remember particularly in the 90s, I went to a session where we were talking to graduates about career paths and career paths in IT. So not to do with women, just generally graduates to do with IT. And there were 4 of us up on stage, including the head of Microsoft UK at that point, talking about our path. And awkwardly, one by one, we realised that every single one of us was saying, well, we didn't really mean to be in IT. It was a bit of a mistake, bit of an accident, a good accident. And it all came round to actually it's done really well. None of us had set out that way. And I do wonder whether that's because that was the 90s and IT was just starting. If you think at that point, it sounds amazing, but the web didn't really exist. When I did my master's degree, I was learning about this newfangled thing called HTML that maybe at one point businesses might be able to put what their current stock levels are out statically on the web, So thinking about my career journey, it has been a series of getting to know people, being asked to do things and making choices around what sounded really interesting. I've always made choices about moving from jobs because I wanted to be kept occupied, to be kept interested. And on occasion, that has meant taking a small pay cut because the thing that I wanted to go and do was more interesting to me. And it always works out over time.
Yeah. And that comes through with the Blipfuture? So
Blipfuture, Blipfuture,
yeah. Blipfuture, you're the co-founder of that. Is that something that keeps you interested? Is that just like a passion thing?
That is a passion thing. So yes, I should explain a little bit of background of that. So there's a website called Blipfuture, which is a photo sharing site. It's a Project 365 site where you post one photo every day and some text. Some people treat it like a text journal. Some people are really into the photography.
Yeah.
It's a really friendly community. It's genuinely a friendly community. And in 2015, the business that was running it, commercial business, made a number of financial decisions through not really any fault of their own, but unlucky, ended up being taken over by venture capitalists, being rescued by venture capitalists who looked at it and thought, don't think this is something that we want to run necessarily, but we can see the community is really active. If you have something where you post a photo every day, it is quite a difficult thing. It's not just punting a load of photos to Facebook. You've got a transaction. It's a bit like doing your Duolingo streak every day. You have a connection to it.
That bloody bear.
I know.
What's his name?
It's the owl, isn't it?
Oh,
Duo.
the owl. Yeah,
Duo.
but there's a bear.
And, yes. The bear, yes.
Yeah, and the Poppy, she always tells me off as well.
Yes, and Lily complaining
Lily,
at me.
that's the one, not Poppy, Lily.
Yes. So, you know the pain. Yeah. So the community was really, really active. And a few of us were asked, well, so do we want to get together and form a not-for-profit to run it in the future? Which, to cut a long story short, we did. There were a number of us, four directors initially, went down to 3. We're now back up to 4 with some other helpers, all completely unpaid. But it's been really useful for me because it was my first foray into actually running a business. I was a techie before that, as you know, and sort of ran areas within, say, the bank where we worked. But running a sort of P&L inside a business is completely separate to running a business. Yeah. So I learned an enormous amount. One of my co-directors has been absolutely amazing to just sit and listen to from a commercial point of view. And I've learned so much. I don't get paid for it, but I still consider it paid in experience. So I get experience in running AWS systems. From the technical side, I get experience in running an e-commerce effectively site, running the business itself, interfacing with the accountant. All of that is experience that's so valuable.
Yeah, always learning.
Yeah.
Have there been any other defining moments on your career path? That sounds like one, or a continuous one, but are there any,
so if I wind all the way back, in the very early days, when I was a child, my mum was a programmer.
Oh, okay.
And she was a programmer in the 1960s.
What did that look like, just for educational purposes?
So she had she interfaced with a machine that was bigger than this room we're currently in. And she had a leased line into our house, so a leased telephone line, dedicated line, and a dumb terminal into that mainframe. Partly because her friends had joked, well, you've got kids now, but you work for Cambridge, or in Cambridge University's mainframe, there are other departments that have remote connections to it. Why don't you have one at home? It was an incredibly unusual thing.
The original working from home.
It was the original working from home. So she had an article in the Times, an article in Computer Weekly about it because it was so unusual. I grew up with that and totally didn't appreciate at all how unusual it was, because I was a 2-year-old toddling around pressing the bell key on a terminal. That's as far as I was interested in it. My mum tried to teach me Fortran when I was 5. I didn't see the point in that. Why would I want to write a loop? It's just, that's all stupid. So again, completely ruined my own career for the early days. And one of the defining moments was I did a degree in physics, mainly because I was good at physics and didn't really know what to do. The defining bit of my career, I didn't really know what to do. And in one of the labs, physics labs, I built a small single board computer which recorded sound and then output the sound, and did the programming for that single board computer in assembler. And I thought, oh, that's annoying. I really enjoyed that. That would have been useful to have learned when I was 5.
Yeah.
So that was one of my defining moments, because I realised these computer things that the family were all into, maybe I should stop refusing to have anything to do with it in a teenage fit of peak.
It's probably going to catch on.
It might catch on, you never know.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a defining moment. I think, so my first job was as a IT trainer and consultant, but mainly IT trainer. We worked as a Microsoft partner, so we worked delivering Microsoft courses, and I taught a range of things from C++ to how to use advanced sort of Word and Excel, or simple Word and Excel, some of which have been some of the most useful skills I've learned. To be able to learn some of the Office products to a really, really deep level, some of the most useful stuff I've had in my career. Yeah. But in doing that, I had to do public speaking every day in front of a group of people. And in my 3rd year of university, I had to do a presentation to my small tutor group, maybe 3 or 4 people. And I didn't sleep for days thinking about it. It was just terrifying to me. The idea of public speaking was just horrendous. And so I'd love to get a time machine and go back and work out what on earth I was thinking in taking the trainer job. But the one thing it did do was beat any of that worry about public speaking out of me, because I had to go and do it every single day. Yeah. It was a very questionable decision as a first job, but Brave. It really worked. So a piece of advice I'd give people, particularly about public speaking, but about your career generally, is think about what scares you, and without making yourself absolutely terrified, go and do it, and just desensitize yourself to it. It's been so useful since. Yeah. And people look at you and think, well, how can you do that? And I think, yeah, I'd love to take you and show you this person in this tutor group that really didn't want to do it.
I think it's, I don't want to sound like too long in the tooth, but I think not even public speaking, just being able to present feels like people are getting more cautious of it or more shy.
It's a terrifying thing to do.
Yeah,
The fear of rejection is a really strong psychological thing. And you don't want to get up there and do something wrong. The reality is, if something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. Another really key moment in my career, I did a talk at a Tech Ed, which would be sort of Microsoft Ignite, 2,000 technical people in the room. I stood up, said, good morning, and my whole machine blew screens. So all of the screens around the room went blue. And the entire audience went, oh, in a slightly delighted tone of voice. And to be able to cope with that and think, I'm not going to cry and I'm not going to go and hide in the toilets, but I'll just calmly reboot my machine.
Nothing to see here.
No.
Talk amongst yourselves.
It's absolutely fine.
So moving on to where you are now.
Yeah.
What I genuinely don't know, because I'm not one really, but what does a day in the life of a CEO look like? What are you folks up to? You know, what's the vision? Like, what's your current day look like apart from coming on podcasts? And
yes, so Curo Services is a technical services company. So we're part technical recruiter, part technical projects, and we specialise in partnering with businesses to help them solve their problems. As a technical recruiter, we haven't come from a recruitment background as a business. We came from a technical background, and we wanted to do that process with the understanding of the technology, with the understanding of the business problems that technology brings, rather than just sort of seeing names on a CV and seeing, technology is not really understanding what that is. So that's where I fit into the business, bringing some of that. There are other technical people within it, which is really useful. When I think about, I tried to explain to my stepmom who's getting forgetful. She's going into a home. She keeps asking what I do. And it's becoming...
You should get good practice.
Well, it's very good practice because it has to happen regularly. But it is quite hard to describe what do you do as a CEO. You're responsible for the strategic direction of the company. So thinking about where we are, obviously technology is moving at a pace that is unknown, but also just the general working world is moving at a pace now that is unusual. With the advent of AI, we're no longer having to think about, so how is this particular technology going to change, or what might the new roles be that will be developed? But actually, there are some fairly fundamental human questions about, will humans even have a place in this world? So without some kind of dystopian nightmare, looking at what your business is currently doing in the strategy and the operational part of how's it currently doing, but also trying to take yourself out of the everyday, ignore what you currently do. And if something's going to disrupt you, how would you be that disruptor? Which is quite a difficult thing to do. As a board, we learnt that we couldn't talk about in the same day about both operational things and strategic things because one leaked into the other. Yeah. And usually it was the strategy that suffered. So we consciously separate them. We do an evening where we talk about operations and get that out of our way. And then we have a day where we're specifically thinking, right, we're lifting ourselves up and thinking about the strategy of the business. How do we need to change? What do we need to do? What's working? What's not? But also, as I say, if we're going to be disrupted by something as a business, how do we make sure that we're not impacted or we are the disruptor ourselves?
And are there any specific things you folks do to keep up with that rapid change and disruption? Share as much as you're able to. Yeah,
looking at the outside world is very important. It's very easy on an everyday basis. We have been guilty of this, of being so busy you don't have a time to just lift your head up and have a little look round. So being connected to industry bodies. We do a lot of work with REC, who are the Recruitment and Employment Confederation. Yeah. So they look and work with the government about the concepts of recruitment and employment. And they're effectively our standards body. They make sure that we do things correctly. And they also, are out looking at changes in government, changes in how people feel. They do all kinds of surveys. So that's all very useful. But just having a look at people's opinions, what's being said on social media, what's being said in the news, it's really important to go out and lift yourself up out of what your everyday is. Otherwise, you end up with your head so far down doing what your everyday is, you haven't noticed the entire world has changed around you and you're no longer relevant. In terms of tech, learning, I don't have a better answer than that. Yeah. Constantly learning. One of the reasons I moved to Curo from the bank, where we both were, was I got the opportunity to join the board, but also I got the opportunity to mix my CEO role with being hands-on tech. Yeah. I have a weird combo where I'm both the CEO and occasionally a bit of the IT department. And I actually end up writing code. I end up, keeping my hand in with stuff. And that means when I go to talk to customers, I can talk to them about, for example, Enter ID, because I've had to do something about that the other week. I'm not the expert, so we would always get experts in, but to have that overall view is quite useful. And again, it's a bit like just passively reading something to me it's not the way I learn. Yeah. I need to actually be doing. And in this modern tech world though, in the olden days, when I started, you could conceivably be an expert in a full stack maybe of, client server stuff, but the world is so complicated now. I have to resign myself to not being an expert in almost any of it and just having a view across, and you get people who are expert in pockets of it. That's been quite an uncomfortable place to go.
Yeah, I was going to ask, has that been a difficult transition? I
think working out how you can know enough that you're still useful, but still accept that you're not the expert in something and that you need external help or you need somebody else who knows that bit. Yeah, it's difficult personally. But that's a transition that's been going on for quite some time because technology's been moving like that for quite some time.
Are there any leadership skills that you've had to hone in on or self-reflect on from maybe managing or being a leader of a smaller team to being like the person? Do you know what I mean?
Curo isn't enormous, so we're a medium-sized business. So, one of the times I was reflecting on thinking about key turning points in my career, there was a point at the bank where I was about to be made redundant almost to the minute, only because they were closing one office and they needed to change where my base was and the paperwork just wasn't going through. So I went through all of the redundancy training, which was a great package. In the end, didn't get made redundant. That was lovely. But one of the things was a bit of career counselling, which was really useful to me because we had a conversation about my idea of being a leader. And my vision, it turned out, of being a leader was the word inspirational. And I felt that was unachievable for me. I didn't think I could be inspirational because to me, that was the big, shiny, kind of really big character up on stage, making big gestures. And I didn't feel that was me. Maybe I could do it, but I didn't feel it was authentically me. And one of the things I think with leadership is really important is to try as hard as you can to be authentic, including having difficult conversations with people, but don't put that. Sometimes you have to turn up and you have to put a happy face on where actually you've got a lot of stuff going on at home, but be as authentic as you can, be vulnerable where you can. So my vision of all of those kind of what I saw was weaknesses didn't fit with the shiny big person on stage. And that piece of career counselling helped me change what my opinion was. And that actually you can truly be inspirational, but also be very real, be vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm glad you came to that realisation because from what I saw, the team massively respected. The team, it's a bit close. It's a bit, people won't know what I'm talking about, but there was a small team of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what was deemed to be, they were like quite a specialist team.
We were an internal consultancy team in the bank. It was strange because it was a team that shouldn't really have existed, and existed because, I mean, in part, I championed.
Yeah, it was
that
felt like
concept.
no one really knew what they did, but everyone went to them when stuff went wrong.
So it was experts in DevOps, latterly experts in Agile, experts in, I mean, this is quite topical, DNS and registering it correctly.
Yeah.
If you don't do it correctly, bad things can happen, I hear.
Yeah.
So maybe, I mean, if AWS or anyone else wants to phone them, I'm sure they'd be able to help. But having that real specialist skill gathered together in a team, and being able to be shared amongst other teams was really useful.
Yeah, and people massively respected you there, from what I saw in that, in that team. I think you were, and you did the everyday stuff that contributes to being a great leader.
Oh,
and I think I think it was all blokes, wasn't it? There was a delivery manager who came on board.
Yes, there have been a couple of women that came in and out. Yes, that doesn't reflect very well on my diversity, does it?
No, but I think I think it was you were very well respected and very well thought of, and you could just tell from no one wanted to let you down. I think that's what I'm trying to say. That's what came through. Not because of your attitude or your persona or the way you acted. I think they just didn't want to let you down.
Well, and that's nice to hear. Yeah, I think that's where I'd want to aim at, definitely. Yeah. But it was, and I'm sure it was just a me perception thing. It was, I can be quite down on myself. And so starting from a position of, I'm never going to get there, was quite hard. And actually, all I needed to do was change where I thought there was. And then it became a lot more simple.
This sort of segues onto the industry itself. When I say industry, because it's so big, seems like a bit of an old school thing to say, to be honest, but I'll stick with it because I've written it down. Is there anything you'd change about the industry? And what would that be? And what would you do about it if you ran the world? I
mean, it is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because we work in tech, which is a big industry. And us as a business, that means we have to keep up with an awful lot of stuff. So that in itself is the reason the question is difficult, actually reflects in, yes, my everyday learned experience of technology as a whole. Every day someone's renamed a technology something else, or some new technology's popped up. But when you think about it, it is really just this one recycled, or it is a whole brand new way of thinking, and you have to get your head around that. I think one of the things, if we think about technical recruitment, one of the things, and this is a personal thing again, I would really wish, the word recruitment has such a bad connotation a lot of the time. People don't like recruiters. And I think that's very unfair to an enormous amount of them, maybe coloured by the perception of a few within the industry. So the way we work is working with partner businesses, and we work really hard to deliver a really good quality product. We work to understand our candidate base. We care, once we've placed the candidate, how they're getting on in that placement. And we're not alone in that. There are so many of the recruiters that are like that. But the name itself, going around and saying you're in recruitment, automatically you can see people back off a little bit. And I wish that would change. Thinking about technology, I mean, I've constantly wished for about 15 years it could just pause for a minute and let people catch up and just think about stuff for a minute. And with the pace, I mean, Copilot everywhere, AI everywhere, that it's so powerful. When you look at what large language models can do, I've punted some of our sort of test data across to it, of big chunks of data, and it makes sense of it. It makes sense of it most of the time. I've still not got my head around quite how much you trust it. Do you just fire something at it and trust that it hasn't just made stuff up? Yeah. Because one of the things that I hear a lot is, it knows stuff. Large language models don't know stuff. They statistically generate language. And you can tweak what the statistics are. It can predictively generate language. And if it predictably generates language, then probably It's going to be right, but it isn't necessarily factually right. So, yeah, what would I change? I don't know. I'd change something about AI just to maybe slightly slow it down a little bit, but that feels very wrong in this day and age.
No, I think...
Let us catch up.
Yeah, just time to breathe.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I've just thought about this now, we hear and see a lot of it, like the content, AI this, AI that. Do you think it's actually penetrated the public? Like Joe Public, someone like Johnny or Sue doing their shopping in Asda. Do you think they know what's coming? Or because I sometimes feel we see so much of it because we're in the echo chamber of LinkedIn, of conferences, of tech, whatever. But then I think about like my mum, who still goes to the train station to print out her tickets because she doesn't want to do it on her phone. And I'm sure she's not the only one. That's just a persona that I've got in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, do you think people really know what's coming?
I think yes and no. There's definitely a digital divide, and AI is possibly making that even wider. It is a very good point that there is an echo chamber, and so what you assume is a universal isn't necessarily. But if you look at the adoption of something like ChatGPT, it's a technology that the public picked up and ran with, and the statistics are something ludicrous. And no other technology that I can think of, maybe some of the internet technology is slightly similar, but no other technology I can think of has really had the public go, hey, what about this? And all the technologists go, I'm sorry, how do you know about that? Usually it's the techie person going, hey, can we try this? And the business going, oh, that sounds dull. No. So I think it, more than any other technology, yes. But part of a lot of thinking is going on into what will a job look like in the future?
What are we going to do with all these people?
Yeah, what are we going to do with all these people? And the human race, what is the point of them at that point? So, again, I'm not going into dystopian nightmares.
No, but it's universal basic income. I've heard that being spoken about because, not my opinion, it's just what you just listen to stuff. What are we going to do with these people?
I think there'll be a point where some of it is we need AI and then we'll think about why we need AI afterwards. Yeah. There's definitely going to be a leveler where it's, a bit like, again, e-commerce sites. They were going to do absolutely everything. And then it settled down to, okay, you can do lots of things. AI will find its place and it won't be all the places that it's being talked about currently. But it is a very powerful tool. And one of the, so your question a minute ago was one of the things I would change in the industry. Again, we're thinking about all of these changes. One of the things we're getting is a whole bunch of AI curated CVs, and you can take your CV and change it according to the job spec. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. You can kind of know when you're reading AI. So if you haven't then as a human gone through and made it sound like you, it does read a bit, it reads a bit like you've got lots of double dashes. So yes, if you've got that on one side and you've got AI curated sort of job searches on the other, we end up, it's great that you can tailor your CV to the job, but then if everyone's doing that, you end up not differentiating any of those and not really seeing the person behind. So there's definitely, I think, a place then for get AI to do the bits that are good. It helps you with the language. Fine, that's great. We've got some great CVs, but we need a way of knowing that they're real. We need a way of knowing that everything on it is actually true. And then we need a way of actually, it's the person that's going to do the job, ignoring the dystopian nightmare of no one's having a job. Yeah. At some point, if you've got a person doing a job, there's more to it than their CV. There's the person and their interactions. So there is a really strong need for a human in that flow. Yeah. And thinking about, so thinking about the curation of those CVs, and people can essentially write anything on their CVs. They can do that today. They can do that without AI. Yeah. It's easier to sound real. AI can make you sound like you know what you're talking about, even if you don't. So one of the things that we need to look at as an industry is how to make information that would have been delivered by a CV verifiable. One of the things we're looking at alongside Rec are looking at it, is the use of digital verifiable credentials.
Okay.
So being able to have a wallet which has your credentials. So as you work, you collect your work record, for example, and you can share that. You can take it back if you don't want to share your data anymore, but it means that that's verifiable. We can see that that record hasn't been tampered. Yeah. And if you look at some of the recent cyber attacks in some of the big high profile ones, some of them were due to people being placed who weren't actually the people that were doing the work. So that's always going to be a risk. People are people. Yeah. But the more you can do to check and verify who's actually there, the better.
Well, because they're pretending to be someone else, or they were crap at the job and made a mistake. Well,
no, because they pretended to be someone else.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So, I mean, there's all manner of, someone turns up to an interview, someone else goes to do the job, all of that kind of thing.
You hear about that with driving tests, don't you?
Yeah.
Like people turning up and doing it for them.
And if you think about the easiest cyber attack is actually someone internally, because they have access to the systems validly. And nowadays in connected structures of businesses, you've got suppliers potentially having some access into other businesses. So now your entire supply chain matters. Yeah. It's complicated, and big. Being able to verify someone is who they are, who they say they are, and has the experience they say they do is quite important.
The data sharing's interesting, isn't it? And this wasn't on the script really, but I won't speak for you. I will put my opinion out there when people talk about digital ID cards and stuff. I'd love to know what people complaining about that put on how much they share on social media. And if it's a correlation.
People often don't make sense. Social media versus, actually reading terms and conditions and clicking OK.
Yeah,
if you want access to Wi-Fi, you will agree to anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Unknown to you because you haven't read any of it. Yeah. So the people don't make sense necessarily in those. Yeah.
Your data's gone, mate. Just accept it. That free Wi-Fi at McDonald's.
I think some of the argument around digital identity is the mandatoriness of it. And verified digital credentials wouldn't be mandatory. No. You would choose what you share, but it is a way of saying, I have these credentials, they are mine, they've not been tampered with. Yeah. It's a way of differentiating. Yeah. So, but it's an interesting thought. People's data privacy, it puts the data into their hands, not yours as a recruiter or yours as an employer. Yeah. If you think about the alternative, you give a reference, you give me a reference as a reference at the bank, but I've moved on to another job. You no longer have that reference. Is it valid? So
yeah, that's true.
None of that process has changed in many years.
No. We still get people asking us for references. And it's just, but the how long ago did that person work for you? Like when does it expire? And anyway, that's a different topic entirely.
It is a different topic, but you asked one of the things I'd like to change. Yeah. The thing that's bubbling up is the idea of trust, and that's always been there. It's not really changed, but with AI, you can make yourself look more real in so many ways. Yeah. So we've talked about CVs, but video, you could potentially do an entire video conference with a fake video.
Yeah, well, someone sent me, they'd been using, is it Notebook? It's one of this, I can't remember. It's on one of the Google AI things. And they'd put a short book on leadership that they'd self-published through it. And they sent me an AI-generated podcast of two people talking about his book and the strategies and the toolkits. And I was like, you could tell, don't get me wrong, and it was very American.
But with a podcast, does it matter a lot of the time?
Well, I was saying that to him. He said, don't worry, yours won't be replaced. And I said, but that's very kind. One, this is video, but from an audio point of view, people listen to audio books. They listen. I don't think from a podcasting point of view it necessarily matters. Depending on the topic. If it's just information, probably not. If it's a conversation.
I think depending on the topic, you're right. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it really does matter and the quality of it. But if I'm just trying to quickly learn something, then I'll suffer through something that's a little bit more, tinny and artificial. Yeah.
It'll be interesting the way it goes, though, for sure. Especially the video one that you just mentioned about someone deep faking that.
Yes. So yes, it's fascinating. Obviously, while I was at the bank, a lot of the stuff I got involved in is some of the cyber stuff. And the more you know, the more you just want to go and dig a hole in the garden and sit in it.
Yeah.
And disconnect all your electronics.
Yeah.
So
have a wind turbine in the back garden.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not.
I've gone back to dystopia.
No, it's fine. But it's interesting. We're going to have to face into it one way or another. Now, I would hate to be starting out now, going into the workplace. But from obviously in the space that you're in, is there I think you've alluded to it, not kicking the arse out of AI and relying on it too much. But what is the best piece of advice you could give someone starting out in our specific area of work?
Yeah, best piece of advice is difficult because I immediately self-filter of, is this the best piece of advice? Yeah. I'll come back to you in 3 years. Yeah. Be brave. I go and do a number of evening events where I get to talk to sort of graduates, and they're talking about their career paths. And they're worried about talking to people. They're worried about what if they don't make the right decision. As I've alluded to with my career, I haven't really made many decisions. It's been gut feel, what's felt interesting, what's felt good. The one thing I've always done is invested in my own learning.
Okay.
So you asked about leadership qualities, actually. I did a psychology degree with the OU part-time while I was working at the bank.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, which was, it was a big time commitment, but I did one course because I was interested in the topic and interested in people generally. And then I thought, well, that's amazing, and ended up doing the whole degree over, about 9 years or something, because it was the OU. But to be able to really take an interest in people, try not to make assumptions about people. Understand that people don't necessarily work logically all the time, but they're not just being difficult because they want to be difficult. They've got stuff going on. Try and understand all of that relationship and be kind and really value kindness, I think. It's one of the things I think I've learned over time as I've got older, that kind is one of the most valuable things you can be to people, and everything else feeds from it. But yes, learning across the piece is so valuable, and investing in yourself. The other thing I would say, so you asked, what does the CEO do? One of the things I'm not very good at doing, and have to try consciously to do, is have downtime where I'm just sitting and thinking creatively, whether it's actually going for a walk or, sitting, reading a book that's relevant, not just reading any old book. But that kind of thing is where your best thinking happens. It's where you allow your brain to stop going on the everyday treadmill and actually think about things. And that can be so valuable in every job, to just have a moment to go, right, what am I doing?
Yeah. Fantastic. Anything else on your mind?
Probably. That's like the final interview question of, have you got any questions for me? No. Yeah. Actually, I did think of something, and I'm going to ask you a question if that's all right.
Yeah, can do. So, I can't promise I'll give you a good answer.
Well, so when we were at the bank, we were starting to kick off the agile journey, weren't we, in the bank? And that was, it's lovely to see it's moving now, and it's moving across the industry. Two of the things we struggled with at the very start of it, which I genuinely don't know the answer to, is how do you best do agile remotely? Does that work? Which I guess everybody had that question answered in 2020 when there was no choice. And how do you do agile for things like infrastructure projects where there really is a sort of, it's either done or it's not. There aren't stories to do with it.
Yeah. There's a story. So I've been lucky enough to go back to that particular place a number of times to do product management and Scrum Master training.
I think you met my husband in one of them.
In Leeds.
Yeah, weirdly.
Yeah, that was, Annie says hello. What?
What?
Okay, yeah. So I was lucky enough to go back when they were on that journey. So if there's any rubbish product managers there now, product owners, they've got me to thank for that. And the thing I always say is the remote thing is interesting because I think you've just got to give in a big organization, there's always going to be a risk tolerance, but ultimately you can't be creative. Well, you can, but it's going to be harder to be creative if you don't open up the tools a bit. So this particular place where we're talking about, I did a lot of online remote training workshops, and it wasn't to the standard that I would want because I just couldn't get on. We weren't allowed to use things like Miro, Miro, even sending them links. I would always send them a load of resources that I'd collected, and they were like, "Oh, we can't get on that because of, we can't get on BBC Weather, so never mind a YouTube video."
Yeah.
So I think to facilitate agility, the first point is having that chat about what can we open up here to get the benefits out of it. And if you can't do that, it's going to be very hard because those events, and it's not all about the events, but it's going to be very difficult to do that if you can't collaborate in a remote way. So
you can collaborate remotely, but only if the kind of the tools and the...
I think so.
Yeah.
Because it does become very difficult if you just can't do anything together.
Yeah.
I suppose the opposite view to that would be, okay, when we say remote, how fully remote are we? Are we going to dedicate one Tuesday a month where we just do all of the collaboration? But again, to your point, you're forcing that creativity on one day of the month.
Yeah, come on, be creative now.
Yeah,
do it.
And some people might, it's not really very fair for that type of pressure. So I think it's about opening up the tool set. Although Agile's not about tools, and people will be saying that, but it is when you're remote. The infrastructure point, I think people are quick to throw Agile at it, but I think it's a fact that projects still exist, and that's not a dirty word. We're allowed to do projects. It's just asking better questions of, do we need to write all of the documentation up front, or can we do it as we go? Can we write the documentation in the code? How do we make this more easy to change in the future? Kanban may be a better option than throwing Scrum at it, for example. So I think it can be done with fixed scope and fixed budget projects. But visualizing the work, I think, will still be the first point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's how I would go about it.
It was an interesting journey to be there at the very start and seeing those seeds of movement.
Yeah, I don't think I was there then. I think I'd left by that point because that's one why.
Yeah, I mean, you were there at the point where the seeds were there.
Yeah,
the seeds were still
in your
quite
team,
little.
yeah, they were.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. But the big.
But I was going and having conversations across, the wider bank about how we do it.
Yeah, and it's been very nice to go back and seeing that they're putting a lot of time, or have put a lot of time and effort into it. Yeah. If you're happy to, and you can look at, sorry, Calvin, not the mic there. You can look at that camera there. Where can people reach out? What's the website? If people want to find out more about the company, etc.
Yep. So we're Curo Services. I'm Annie Andrews. And so the website is www.curoservices.com. And yeah, reach out. I'm very happy to chat to anyone who wants to know any more about us.
And if you enjoyed this conversation, there will be another one around about there that YouTube will recommend with another, fabulous person that's taken the time to come on. But Annie, thank you very much.
Thank you.